If you want to be the best at anything, truly the best, then you must first understand a simple but demanding truth: success is never an accident, and excellence is never casual. It is always the result of deliberate choices made repeatedly, often when no one is watching, and usually when it would be easier to quit, delay, or settle for average. The marketplace, life, and your future do not reward intentions. They reward preparation, discipline, and standards. Every extraordinary achievement begins with a decision to take full responsibility for where you are and where you are going. The moment you stop blaming circumstances, luck, the economy, or other people, and start managing your philosophy, your habits, and your time, everything begins to change. You don't need more talent, you need more structure. You don't need more opportunity. You need more commitment to personal growth. Being the best is not about comparison, it's about correction. Correcting small errors in thinking, correcting daily routines, correcting the way you speak to yourself about effort, failure, and patience. Mastery is built quietly through fundamentals practiced with consistency, through learning that never stops, and through standards that refuse to drop just because results take time. The challenge is not that success is complicated. The challenge is that it is simple, and simple disciplines, repeated daily, are easy to ignore. But if you are willing to live by principles instead of moods, to invest in yourself more than you spend on distractions, and to demand excellence from your own behavior, then greatness stops being a mystery. It becomes a process. And once you understand the rules, you no longer chase success. You attract it by the person you become. Personal responsibility is where all progress begins, because until a person accepts that their life is largely shaped by their own choices, nothing meaningful can change. The moment someone believes their results are controlled primarily by the economy, their upbringing, their connections, or their luck, they surrender their power. Responsibility is not about blame or guilt. It is about ownership. It is the understanding that whatever the current conditions may be, the response to those conditions determines the future. Once a person embraces this idea, excuses lose their appeal and improvement becomes possible. The most capable individuals are not those who avoid difficulty, but those who refuse to let difficulty dictate their attitude or effort. Personal responsibility means recognizing that discipline is more reliable than motivation, and that consistency outweighs bursts of enthusiasm. When someone accepts responsibility, they stop waiting for permission to improve. They no longer ask whether the timing is perfect or whether circumstances are ideal. They understand that progress is created by action taken now with whatever resources are currently available, rather than action postponed until everything feels comfortable. This mindset fundamentally changes how failure is perceived. Instead of viewing setbacks as proof of inadequacy, a responsible individual treats them as feedback. Every result becomes information. If the outcome is poor, the response is not emotional self-criticism or external blame, but thoughtful adjustment. What skill needs strengthening? What habit needs correcting? What decision needs refining? This approach builds resilience because it replaces discouragement with curiosity and self-command. Taking responsibility also elevates standards. When someone realizes that their income, health, relationships, and personal growth are directly influenced by daily choices, mediocrity becomes uncomfortable. Standards rise not because of external pressure, but because self-respect demands it. Time is treated as valuable. Commitments are honored, and promises made to oneself are taken seriously. This is where excellence quietly forms, not through dramatic moments, but through ordinary days handled with care and intention. Another powerful aspect of responsibility is that it restores control. While no one controls everything, everyone controls something. Attitude, effort, preparation, and learning are always within reach. The person who accepts responsibility focuses energy on these controllables rather than wasting it on complaint. This creates momentum. Small wins compound. Confidence grows not from positive thinking, but from proven self-trust earned through follow-through. Responsibility also sharpens decision making. When individuals understand that every choice carries consequences, they begin to think long-term. Comfort is no longer the primary filter. Character and future results become the reference point. This leads to better habits, healthier routines, and wiser associations. It encourages investment in personal development because the responsible person understands that becoming more valuable is the surest way to improve circumstances. At its highest level, personal responsibility is a form of leadership. Even without a title, those who own their actions inspire trust. They do not complain publicly and work privately. They do not wait to be managed. They manage themselves. This influence extends beyond career success into family life, community, and legacy. Children learn more from example than instruction, and colleagues respond more to consistency than words. Ultimately, being the best at anything requires the humility to say, if it is to be, it is up to me, and the discipline to live as though that statement is true every day, especially on the days when effort feels inconvenient, progress seems slow, and recognition is absent, because responsibility practiced over time reshapes identity. And identity determines destiny. Clarity of purpose is the invisible force that gives direction to effort and meaning to discipline. Because without a clear understanding of why you are pursuing something, even the strongest ambition eventually weakens. Many people work hard, but few work with precision. They stay busy, but they drift. Purpose is what transforms activity into progress. It provides a target for energy and a filter for decisions, ensuring that time and effort are invested rather than spent. When purpose is unclear, distractions gain power. Urgent but unimportant tasks feel productive, while the essential work is postponed. A person without clarity reacts to circumstances instead of directing them. They measure success by movement rather than advancement. With purpose, however, priorities sharpen. Choices become simpler, not easier. Because the question shifts from, what do I feel like doing today? To, does this move me closer to what I am committed to becoming? That question alone eliminates countless distractions. Purpose also strengthens endurance. Every worthwhile pursuit includes discomfort, delay, and doubt. Without a compelling reason, resistance quickly feels overwhelming. But when the purpose is strong, difficulty is reframed. Challenges become part of the price rather than a signal to quit. Fatigue is understood as temporary, while meaning is lasting. This is why individuals with a clear purpose can sustain effort long after motivation fades. They are not driven by emotion. They are guided by intention. Clarity of purpose does not always arrive as a dramatic revelation. Often, it is shaped gradually through reflection, experience, and honest self-assessment. It requires asking disciplined questions. What kind of person do I want to become? What values am I unwilling to compromise? What contribution do I want my work to represent? Purpose begins to form when answers to these questions are taken seriously and translated into daily behavior. It is less about finding the perfect destination and more about choosing a direction worth committing to. Once purpose is defined, standards rise naturally. When people know what they stand for, they become less tolerant of habits that undermine their progress. Time is guarded more carefully. Energy is managed with intention. Relationships are evaluated by whether they support or sabotage growth. Purpose becomes an internal compass, reducing reliance on external validation. Approval becomes secondary to alignment, and this alignment creates stability even in uncertain environments. Purpose also enhances learning. When the destination is clear, learning becomes strategic rather than random. Skills are acquired for a reason. Feedback is sought deliberately. Improvement accelerates because effort is focused. Instead of chasing every opportunity, the purposeful individual chooses opportunities that compound in the same direction. This prevents burnout and builds depth rather than scattered competence. Perhaps most importantly, clarity of purpose gives identity to effort. Work is no longer just a means to survive or impress. It becomes an expression of values. This creates fulfillment independent of immediate results. Progress is measured not only by outcomes, but by integrity and growth. Even setbacks feel meaningful because they occur in service of something that matters. Being the best at anything requires more than talent and persistence. It requires knowing why excellence matters to you personally, because when purpose is clear, discipline becomes sustainable, decisions become coherent, and effort gains a sense of dignity that carries you forward through uncertainty, resistance, and time. Daily discipline is the quiet force that separates those who make progress from those who only make promises, because motivation is emotional and temporary, while discipline is structural and dependable. Motivation comes and goes with mood, energy, and circumstances, but discipline remains when feelings fluctuate. Those who rely on motivation tend to work when they feel inspired and pause when they feel tired or uncertain. Those who rely on discipline operate from commitment, not emotion, and commitment produces results regardless of internal resistance. Discipline begins with understanding that success is not created by occasional intensity, but by repeated structure. Small actions performed daily may appear insignificant in isolation, yet over time they compound into extraordinary outcomes. Reading a few pages every day, practicing a skill consistently, managing time with intention, and honoring routines build momentum that motivation alone cannot sustain. Discipline removes the need to debate with oneself every morning about whether to act. The decision has already been made, and the habit carries it forward. One of the greatest advantages of discipline is that it conserves mental energy. When standards and routines are established, fewer decisions are required. This reduces friction and increases consistency. Instead of negotiating with comfort, the disciplined individual follows a plan. This creates reliability, both internally and externally. Self-trust grows because promises made to oneself are consistently kept, and this trust strengthens confidence far more than positive thinking ever could. Daily discipline also reframes effort. Work is no longer dependent on enthusiasm. It becomes part of identity. Just as a professional shows up regardless of mood, the disciplined person acts in alignment with long-term goals rather than short-term comfort. This mindset eliminates excuses without requiring harsh self-judgment. It is not about being rigid or joyless. It is about honoring the future by managing the present. Another critical aspect of discipline is its role in emotional stability. When routines are stable, life feels less chaotic. Progress becomes predictable. This predictability reduces anxiety and increases resilience. Setbacks are absorbed more effectively because the system remains intact. Missed days are corrected quickly rather than becoming reasons to quit. Discipline provides a framework that supports recovery, not perfection. Discipline also creates fairness. Life eventually treats disciplined individuals more kindly, not because they are lucky, but because they are prepared. Opportunities are recognized and seized because skills have been developed quietly over time. Confidence appears natural, yet it is earned through repetition. While others wait for ideal conditions, the disciplined individual improves under real conditions, which makes them adaptable and valuable. Importantly, discipline is teachable and trainable. It is not reserved for the naturally driven or gifted. It is built by starting small and remaining consistent. Success in discipline comes from keeping commitments manageable and honoring them daily. As capacity grows, standards can be raised. This gradual strengthening prevents burnout and reinforces the belief that progress is always within reach. In the pursuit of excellence, motivation may start the journey, but discipline determines whether it continues. Those who master daily discipline gain control over their time, their habits, and ultimately their outcomes, because when action becomes habitual and aligned with purpose, progress no longer depends on how one feels, but on who one has decided to be. Commitment to lifelong learning is what keeps ability relevant and potential expanding, because the world does not stand still and neither do the standards required to remain effective within it. The moment a person assumes they know enough, growth slows and opportunity begins to pass them by. Learning is not a phase reserved for youth or formal education. It is a continuous process that sharpens judgment, deepens understanding, and multiplies effectiveness over time. Those who embrace lifelong learning approach knowledge with humility rather than ego. They understand that competence is never final and that improvement is always possible. This attitude protects them from stagnation. Instead of defending what they already know, they seek what they have not yet mastered. They read, observe, listen, and reflect with intention, knowing that every new insight has the potential to refine performance or correct error. Learning also enhances adaptability. Industries change, tools evolve, and expectations rise. The individual committed to learning is not threatened by change because they are equipped to adjust. Skills are updated, perspectives are broadened, and relevance is maintained. This adaptability is not reactive, it is proactive. The learner anticipates change by continuously expanding their capabilities, making them valuable regardless of external shifts. Another powerful effect of learning is the improvement of decision making. The more one learns, the more patterns become visible. Experience combined with study creates wisdom, allowing choices to be made with greater foresight and less emotional volatility. Learning exposes consequences before they are lived and offers alternatives before mistakes are repeated. This reduces costly trial and error and accelerates maturity in both personal and professional arenas. Lifelong learning also fuels confidence, but not the fragile confidence based on comparison or praise. It produces quiet assurance grounded in preparation. When challenges arise, the learner is less intimidated because they trust their ability to acquire what is needed. They know that ignorance is temporary if effort is consistent. This mindset replaces fear of failure with curiosity, transforming obstacles into assignments rather than threats. Learning is also deeply connected to leadership. Those who continue to learn remain teachable, and teachable people remain influential. They do not impose outdated ideas or rigid thinking. Instead, they model growth, inviting others to improve alongside them. This creates environments where progress is normal and innovation is encouraged. Influence grows not from authority alone, but from demonstrated competence and openness to improvement. Importantly, learning refines character as much as skill. Exposure to ideas, philosophies, and experiences expands empathy and perspective. It reduces arrogance and strengthens judgment. The learner becomes more thoughtful, patient, and discerning. This inner development is essential for sustained success because technical ability without wisdom often leads to short-lived achievement. Lifelong learning does not require constant intensity, but it does require consistency. Small investments made daily accumulate into deep expertise over years. A few pages read, a conversation analyzed, a lesson extracted from experience. These actions compound quietly. Over time, they create an individual who is not only skilled, but wise. Being the best at anything demands more than talent and effort. It demands the willingness to remain a student regardless of age, status, or success, because the individual who continues to learn continues to grow, and the one who grows remains capable of meeting higher standards and greater responsibilities throughout life. Mastery of fundamentals is the discipline of doing simple things exceptionally well, long before attempting anything advanced, because excellence is always built on a strong foundation. Many people are eager to skip the basics, believing that progress comes from complexity or innovation alone. But lasting success is created by precision in the ordinary. Fundamentals are not glamorous, yet they are powerful, and neglecting them eventually limits growth regardless of talent or ambition. Every field, whether business, communication, athletics, or personal development, is governed by core principles that do not change. These principles form the base upon which all advanced techniques depend. When fundamentals are weak, performance becomes inconsistent. Results fluctuate, confidence erodes, and pressure exposes gaps. Those who master fundamentals, however, remain steady under stress because their foundation is reliable. They do not panic when conditions become difficult because they are anchored in practices that have been tested through repetition. Mastery of fundamentals requires patience, and patience is often mistaken for slowness. In reality, patience accelerates progress by preventing costly errors. When time is invested early in understanding and refining basics, advanced skills are learned faster and applied more effectively. The person who rushes ahead may appear to advance quickly, but they often plateau or regress because their base cannot support increased demand. Fundamentals act as support beams, carrying the weight of growth without collapse. Another critical benefit of fundamentals is consistency. Advanced strategies may vary with trends and circumstances, but fundamentals remain constant. When a person knows how to execute the basics with precision, they can adapt those basics to any situation. This flexibility creates confidence. Instead of relying on complex systems or external tools, the individual relies on skill and understanding which are portable and dependable. Fundamentals also sharpen awareness. When the basics are deeply understood, subtle mistakes become visible. Small inefficiencies are noticed and corrected before they become significant problems. This level of awareness separates professionals from amateurs. The professional does not wait for failure to reveal weakness. They refine continuously, knowing that excellence is maintained through attention to detail. In addition, mastery of fundamentals builds credibility, whether in leadership, craft, or communication. Those who demonstrate command of the basics earn trust. Others may impress briefly with complexity, but sustained respect is given to those who perform reliably. Fundamentals signal seriousness and discipline. They show that success is not accidental, but earned through preparation and practice. The process of mastering fundamentals also strengthens character. Repetition develops humility because progress is gradual. It develops discipline because improvement requires consistency. It develops focus because distractions must be set aside in favor of deliberate practice. These traits extend beyond the skill itself, influencing how a person approaches challenges in all areas of life. Fundamentals never stop being relevant. Even at the highest levels of performance, the best continue to revisit basics, refining them further. This is not regression, it is reinforcement. The higher the level, the greater the demand on fundamentals. Pressure does not require more complexity. It requires greater precision in what already works. To be the best at anything, one must resist the temptation to chase shortcuts and instead commit to excellence in the essentials, because when fundamentals are mastered, advanced performance becomes natural, consistency becomes predictable, and growth becomes sustainable across changing conditions and rising expectations. Consistency is the quiet discipline that transforms intention into identity, because what a person does repeatedly eventually defines who they become. Many individuals begin with enthusiasm, setting goals and making promises, but enthusiasm without consistency produces little more than temporary motion. Progress requires reliability. It requires showing up not once or twice, but again and again, regardless of mood, recognition, or immediate results. The power of consistency lies in its cumulative effect. Small actions, when repeated daily, gain strength through time. A single effort may seem insignificant, but repetition gives it weight. Skills sharpen, habits solidify, and confidence grows as evidence of follow-through accumulates. Consistency turns average effort into exceptional results by allowing compound improvement to take place quietly and steadily. One of the greatest challenges to consistency is impatience. Many abandon their efforts not because they are ineffective, but because the results are not immediate. Consistency demands faith in process over excitement in outcome. It requires trusting that disciplined repetition will eventually produce visible rewards. Those who understand this remain steady, while others move on, and over time, that steadiness creates separation. Consistency also simplifies success. Instead of relying on complex plans or perfect conditions, It focuses on repeatable actions. The question becomes not how to do something perfectly, but how to do it reliably. This approach reduces pressure and increases sustainability. When actions are manageable, they are more likely to be repeated, and repetition is what produces mastery. Another important dimension of consistency is integrity. Keeping commitments to oneself builds self-respect. When promises are honored, trust is established internally. This internal trust is powerful because it removes hesitation. Decisions are made with confidence, knowing that effort will follow. In contrast, inconsistency erodes self-belief, creating doubt and hesitation that slow progress. Consistency also creates resilience. Missed days and mistakes are inevitable, but the consistent individual recovers quickly. They do not interpret setbacks as failure, but as interruptions, because their identity is rooted in persistence. Rather than perfection, they return to their routines without excessive self-judgment. This ability to resume is often more important than the ability to perform flawlessly. In professional and personal environments, consistency builds reputation. Others come to rely on those who are dependable. Trust grows not from grand gestures, but from predictable behavior. Opportunities tend to flow toward those who demonstrate reliability over time. Consistency signals maturity and discipline, qualities that attract responsibility and leadership roles. Consistency also protects focus. By committing to a narrow set of priorities and executing them regularly, energy is not scattered. Progress becomes visible and motivating. This reinforces the behavior, creating a positive feedback loop where effort produces results, and results encourage continued effort. Being the best at anything does not require extraordinary bursts of effort. It requires ordinary actions performed with extraordinary regularity, because consistency compounds discipline, strengthens identity, and steadily closes the gap between potential and performance until excellence becomes not something you pursue, but something you practice daily. Respect for time is ultimately a reflection of respect for oneself, because time is the one resource that cannot be recovered, replaced, or negotiated with. Money can be earned again, opportunities can reappear, and mistakes can be corrected, but time moves in one direction only. Those who understand this do not treat time casually. They recognize that how they spend their hours is how they spend their life. And this awareness brings seriousness and intention to daily behavior. When time is not respected, life becomes reactive. Days are filled with interruptions, distractions, and urgencies that crowd out what truly matters. Activity replaces progress, and busyness creates the illusion of productivity. Respecting time requires discernment. It means deciding in advance what deserves attention and what does not. This is not about rigid schedules or obsession with efficiency. It is about alignment between values and behavior. Time becomes a tool rather than a liability. Self-respect shows itself in the willingness to protect one's time from misuse. This includes saying no to commitments that do not serve long-term goals, limiting exposure to distractions that drain focus, and organizing routines to reduce waste. These choices may appear small, but over months and years they create significant differences in outcomes. The disciplined individual understands that every hour either contributes to growth or quietly subtracts from it. Respect for time also elevates preparation. When time is valued, planning becomes natural. Tasks are anticipated rather than rushed, and deadlines are met without panic. This creates calm competence. Stress decreases not because pressure disappears, but because it is managed in advance. People who respect time rarely need to apologize for being unprepared. Their habits protect them from unnecessary urgency. Another important aspect of time respect is punctuality and reliability. Being on time is not merely polite. It communicates integrity. It signals that commitments matter and that other people's time is valued. This builds trust and credibility in both personal and professional relationships. Over time, those who honor time earn greater responsibility because they demonstrate control over themselves. Time respect also encourages presence. When hours are managed intentionally, attention is no longer fragmented. Conversations become more meaningful, work becomes more focused, and rest becomes more restorative. This quality of presence improves performance and well-being simultaneously. The person who respects time understands that rushing through life diminishes both results and satisfaction. Importantly, respecting time does not mean eliminating rest or enjoyment. On the contrary, it ensures that rest is earned and enjoyed without guilt. Leisure becomes purposeful rather than escapist. Recovery is planned, not accidental. This balance prevents burnout and supports long-term consistency. Time respect also sharpens awareness of opportunity cost. Choosing one activity means declining another. When this reality is acknowledged, decisions become more thoughtful. The question shifts from what is easy or enjoyable in the moment to what is valuable in the long run. This perspective protects against impulsive behavior that undermines progress. Being the best at anything requires more than effort. It requires stewardship of time because those who manage their hours with discipline and intention gradually build a life that reflects their priorities, their standards, and their self-respect, and over time, that respect compounds into greater focus, reliability, and meaningful achievement. Self-development is the ultimate competitive advantage because external advantages are temporary, but internal growth compounds over a lifetime. Skills can become outdated, positions can change, and markets can shift. Yet the person who continuously improves their thinking, habits, and character remains valuable in any environment. When someone commits to self-development, they are no longer dependent on favorable circumstances. They become capable of creating value wherever they are. The foundation of self-development is the belief that improvement is always possible. This belief shapes behavior. Instead of defending weaknesses or avoiding feedback, the developing individual seeks refinement. They understand that discomfort often signals growth and that correction is not an insult, but an invitation to become better. This openness accelerates progress and prevents stagnation, which is often more dangerous than failure. Self-development strengthens thinking before it strengthens results. Improved thinking leads to better decisions, and better decisions produce better outcomes. Reading, reflection, mentorship, and disciplined learning refine perspective. Over time, patterns become clearer, reactions become calmer, and judgment becomes sharper. This intellectual growth reduces emotional decision making and increases long-term effectiveness. Another critical dimension of self-development is habit formation. Success is not built on isolated achievements, but on daily behaviors that support growth. Developing the discipline to manage time, energy, and attention creates stability. These habits reduce reliance on willpower and increase consistency. As habits improve, Results follow naturally, often without dramatic effort. Self-development also builds confidence that is rooted in competence rather than comparison. When a person invests in their abilities, they gain quiet assurance. They are less threatened by others' success and more focused on their own progress. This internal confidence allows them to operate without constant validation, making them resilient in competitive environments. In professional contexts, self-development increases leverage. Those who learn continuously, communicate effectively, and adapt quickly become problem solvers rather than task completers. They are entrusted with greater responsibility because they reduce risk and increase capacity. Their value is not tied to a single role, but to their ability to learn and contribute at higher levels. On a personal level, self-development enhances relationships. Improved emotional intelligence, communication, and self-awareness lead to healthier interactions. Conflicts are handled with maturity rather than impulse. Growth in character strengthens trust, and trust deepens connection. These improvements create stability that supports achievement rather than undermining it. Self-development also creates momentum. Each improvement reinforces the belief that progress is within reach. This momentum builds over time, creating a positive cycle where effort leads to growth, growth leads to confidence, and confidence encourages further effort. Unlike external rewards, this cycle is self-sustaining. Being the best at anything is not about outperforming others. It is about outgrowing previous limitations, because when a person commits to continuous self-development, they carry their advantage within them, adapting to change, rising with new demands, and steadily increasing their capacity to perform, contribute, and lead at higher levels throughout their life. Standards are the invisible rules that govern behavior long before results appear, and they shape outcomes more powerfully than goals ever can. Goals are important because they give direction, but standards determine consistency. A goal is something you aim for. A standard is something you live by. When standards are low, even the best goals collapse under pressure. When standards are high, progress continues even when motivation fades. Many people rely on goals to inspire change, yet they tolerate habits that contradict those goals. This creates frustration and inconsistency. Standards resolve this conflict by defining acceptable behavior in advance. They remove negotiation from daily decisions. When a standard is established, behavior becomes automatic. Effort is no longer dependent on desire. It is guided by identity. The question shifts from whether to act to how well to act. Standards are closely tied to self-image. How a person believes they should live determines what they allow and what they refuse. When someone raises their standards, they raise their self-respect. They no longer accept excuses that once seemed reasonable. Time is treated with greater care. Commitments are honored, and preparation becomes non-negotiable. These changes are subtle, yet they produce profound effects over time. Unlike goals, which can be postponed or abandoned, standards are ongoing. A goal can be missed and forgotten. A standard continues to operate every day. This continuity creates stability. Even when results are slow, standards maintain momentum. Progress may be invisible in the short term, but behavior remains aligned with long-term outcomes. This is why those with strong standards often surpass more talented individuals who rely on occasional intensity. Standards also protect against compromise. In moments of fatigue or temptation, Standards serve as boundaries. They prevent small lapses from becoming patterns. This is especially important under pressure when shortcuts are most tempting. The individual with high standards does not ask what they can get away with. They ask what aligns with who they intend to be. Raising standards requires honesty. It demands acknowledging gaps between current behavior and desired identity. This can be uncomfortable, but it is also empowering. Once standards are clarified, improvement becomes structured rather than emotional. Effort is directed, not scattered. Discipline becomes an expression of values rather than a punishment. Standards influence environment as well. People tend to associate with those who share similar expectations. When standards rise, certain distractions and relationships naturally fall away, making room for growth-oriented influences. This alignment reinforces behavior, making high performance more sustainable. Importantly, standards must be realistic to be effective. They should challenge without overwhelming. The purpose of standards is not perfection, but consistency. As capacity grows, standards can be raised gradually. This progression prevents burnout and builds confidence through repeated success. Being the best at anything is less about achieving a single objective and more about becoming a person who operates at a certain level every day, because when standards define behavior, excellence stops being an occasional achievement and becomes a natural outcome of how one lives, thinks, and responds to responsibility over time. Excellence is not something that appears in rare moments of peak performance. It is the result of habits practiced so consistently that high standards become normal. Many people believe excellence requires extraordinary talent or dramatic effort, but in reality, it is built through ordinary actions, executed with care, discipline, and intention. What separates those who perform at a high level from those who do not is not intensity, but repetition. Habits quietly shape outcomes long before results are visible. Habits operate beneath conscious effort. Once established, they guide behavior automatically, reducing reliance on willpower. This is why excellence cannot depend on occasional inspiration. Inspiration is unpredictable, but habits are dependable. When the right habits are in place, progress continues even on difficult days. The individual no longer debates whether to act. Action is simply part of who they are. This identity-based behavior is what sustains excellence over time. The formation of excellent habits begins with clarity. One must decide what behaviors support the desired level of performance and commit to practicing them daily. These behaviors may seem small, but they are precise. Attention to detail, preparation, follow-through, and continuous refinement become routine. Over time, these routines elevate quality without requiring constant effort. Excellence becomes less about striving and more about maintenance. Habits also create consistency, and consistency builds trust. In any field, those who deliver reliable quality earn credibility. Others may achieve occasional success, but sustained excellence is what attracts responsibility and opportunity. Habitual excellence signals professionalism and maturity. It shows that performance is not dependent on favorable conditions, but on internal structure. Another important aspect of excellence as a habit is resilience. Habits provide stability during uncertainty. When external circumstances fluctuate, internal routines remain. This stability allows performance to continue under pressure. Mistakes are corrected quickly because the system supports recovery. The focus remains on process rather than perfection, which prevents discouragement and burnout. Habits of excellence also encourage continuous improvement. Because behaviors are repeated, feedback becomes visible. Small adjustments can be made regularly, leading to refinement over time. This incremental improvement compounds. What begins as competence evolves into mastery. The individual does not chase perfection. They pursue progress, and progress accumulates. Excellence as a habit also reshapes self-image. As high-quality behavior becomes normal, self-respect increases. Confidence grows naturally from evidence, not affirmation. This internal confidence is stable because it is earned. The individual trusts their ability to perform because they have done so repeatedly. This trust reduces anxiety and increases focus. Importantly, habits of excellence extend beyond a single skill or role. They influence how a person approaches all responsibilities. Punctuality, preparation, learning, and integrity become universal practices. This creates a cohesive life structure where success in one area supports success in others. Being the best at anything is not achieved through occasional greatness, but through daily commitment to doing small things well, because when excellence is practiced as a habit, it becomes embedded in identity, shaping behavior, reinforcing standards, and producing consistent high-level performance across time and circumstances